Yes, welcome. Apologies. I haven't heard anything about board member Chris. There'll be no apologies. Public forum. And I will remind you that you have your allotted 5 minutes. First up, Joyce.
Oh, okay.
On behalf of Tairua Walk.
That's right, Walk Tairua. I'll take a couple of minutes. I just wanted to see if we could have a slot with you in the networking meetings so that we can talk to you about the plans we have underway. Not sure quite how you're working that, whether it's various groups all together on the 26th or whether you're going to do a separate slot. We certainly like the opportunity to talk to you if we can.
Are you able to give them a few words, because I find it to get into those networking. A few words what you're wanting to have.
Oh, sure. Well, there's 2 big projects that we are involved in, and one, of course, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is the trying to get footpath along the main road between Grand Street to the township. And we keep hearing things that's sort of slowly moving in the background, but we're very much like push that forward. And the other thing is down in the Heavy Reserve, which links to the bridge we built, that goes around the back of the golf course, that area floods really badly. It's been so wet and all this weather we have. We need to work with the vaccinated people to get supply access through this.
Thank you.
There's a major issue.
Very helpful. I'm aware of this one particularly.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Good.
Well, excuse me,
Good.
take me longer to get up on that by I've seen the procedure for the Holland Stream and the Mount Ave pipeline and all that on, but there is no mention of the connection between the stormwater drain outside number 16 to onto the existing stormwater. Now, the stormwater drain outside 16 is just a sump, and it's right beside a sewer pumping station, and that twice that sewer pumping station has overflown, and then sewage is down into the street. So I just wondered if that could be put back onto the project for the connecting up into the main stormwater line.
Just clarification there, Gordon, did you say that it's currently just a sump?
It's just a sump now. And what it is that the lake hasn't been cleaned out properly for yonks, and the lake is coming up and it is flowing down in through that area. And so there's that coming in, it's flowing all into Holland Close now. I think I asked last time about getting the outlet for the lake cleaned up, but I don't know what any happened on that. And but my main concern is the sewage overflow that we've had twice and quite down the street. So I just wondered if I know it's putting sewage into the stormwater thing, but do we have to get a higher protection wall around the pump station, or what we can do about that?
I saw the images and notes that will be referred on to. Because stormwater is a big problem in many parts of it.
I know. You tell me about what this is, what the Holland Stream stormwater is all about, this the flooding that we get, which has been going on for 20 years. So, you know, we haven't had any satisfaction up till now. I've been part of a committee that's been working on it for 9 years now, Bob, and we still haven't got any satisfaction over 9 years working on it. So I think that's a wee bit over the top to getting through it onto it. We've only just, I don't know whether we got resource consent now. You've been telling us that you've got resource consent going back and forward, but it's Mickey Mouse. And we don't know when the job is going to start. It was supposed to be in June, but June just about up. So, see if we can get some answers. I have no feedback from the council because I've been on that committee for 8 years and I've had no feedback from the council about anything on it. Only I've got through another intermediary these data that was set out by what's your crowd, Kinetic?
Kinetic.
Yeah. So that's what I'm basing my argument on today about this.
We will ask the question during the work program.
Did it flood again this weekend? Paul?
No, we didn't, but there was water coming into the street, but not as bad as what we've had it. Good luck or we'd be dodged the bullet there for it, but you know, we had flooding just about 3 times a year there, one part of it. So we understand the stream's going to be cleaned up and the road's going to be raised and that on it. But I would like that stormwater pipe connected onto the existing stormwater there. It's only about not 50 metres stormwater pipe to connect onto.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. Leah, good morning.
Morning. Good morning. My name is Claire Spear. I'm a permanent resident of Tairua now for 26 years. I'm the chair of Tairua Neighbourhood Support and manage the Civil Defence Evacuation Centre, which moved into the Community Welfare Centre during Karakia. I'd like to advise the Tairua Community Board of the Council's priorities for resourcing, which at this stage exclude Pāuanui. On the 1st of June, I emailed Team Civil Defence because I'd heard that there were grants that were potentially available for civil defence. And said that I'd like to look at applying for funding on behalf of our community to purchase a computer-friendly generator for Pāuanui. I received a response back saying that they'd applied for funding on behalf of the communities and we're just waiting to hear back. A couple of weeks went by and I thought, it actually didn't say Pāuanui, so I'll double check. So I emailed back and asked whether this would include Pāuanui or just Tairua. And what prompted that was that I am aware that Tairua is because it's on a main road, the Civil Defence Centre, it has priority and it's actually classed as a Civil Defence Centre. Pāuanui is not on a main road, so only classed as a community centre. So on the 15th of June, it was confirmed that Tairua is one of the Civil Defence Centres and therefore in the first tranche of funding for resourcing. There was no mention of where the second or any future tranches would be. So for context, in terms of civil defence, we have the police which is stationed at Tairua. The Tairua-Pāuanui land sale resources are housed at Tairua and they have comprehensive radio systems. And now future civil defence infrastructure resources will also be housed at Tairua. This should be of concern to all those ratepayers of Pāuanui when considering resilience planning, as it places all response on our volunteer fire brigade. Thank you.
Thank you. I share your concerns. Bob, good morning to you, sir.
Morning. I don't want to put them up there. I'll use my 5 minutes to go through some of the issues that we've got on the work schedule. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you that you're reviewing the request for information policy. We've been told for 10 years it's the Rolls-Royce system of Rolls-Royces, but it's totally ineffective and it needs to be overhauled. I'll just flip this around. This is an example of a piece of footpath. We put a request for service in 2.5 years ago. And we just want to continually get told, oh, it's part of the work schedule, it'll be done, it should be right. Now, a gentleman on the mobility scooter just about flipped his scooter on it, So now he's gone along and painted all around the whole areas on the footpath down through the reserve. So we need to make it work because it just doesn't work. The second item is a series of photos of the sand build-up at Tairua-Pāuanui, which were taken last Wednesday.
Can I just ask where that is?
It's just to the yellow part off the end of Coronation Road. In well over 2 years.
Of the coronation you see that.
Yeah, it's off the end of Coronation Road. These photos were taken last Wednesday. It just shows you the extreme condition of where the harbour's at. We've got 6 and 7 metre floats hitting the bottom in the main channel and on the bar at half tide. And we've got launches in the marina, the ones moored in the estuary, and the ones in the waterways that basically can't use their boats if there's any swell whatsoever. They just can't get out. So it's an absolute destruction of the future of our community. State Highway 25 is killing us anyway, but now people are taking their boats out of town, taking them home and saying, well, we're not bother coming down. There's no chance of me going voting anyway. I was safe for it because there's a high risk I won't get out. So is
it sort of considered that new boat ramp didn't help things?
Look, I mean, that's been an argument that's been around for bloody 25 years. The issue is that the build up of sand is restricted to flow past that ramp now. And what they did recently by putting another channel in has made it even worse, right? So what they've done is divert some of the flow from the main channel to another channel they created by Lipton Bridge, which is created another problem. So I see that we're constantly trying to get the existing consents renewed. Because we had consents for 2,000 cubics for the rental on the bridge month. We tried to get them to increase that. We were told, no, that's too hard, we'll just take it 2,000 cubics. We've been totally ignored and kept in the dark. And now I read on this document that nothing's been done. And what we're doing now is now part of a global consent being applied for. What is a global consent? What communications have happened with the users of the harbour? I mean, is this another agenda of a staff member just finding a reason for not doing something? I mean, if you're going to set up a project and do something, you need tangible goals of what you're going to achieve. So, you know, it's just absolutely going around circles. So I can assure you there's a lot of very angry people with boats in this community that are just absolutely have guts of just being ignored and what's going on. And quickly, just on Holland Close, Gordon's made a comment of that. I've been on a committee, I've chaired the committee for 10 years, and it's the biggest waste of my life to try and resolve this issue. Recently, we were told that stage 1 would be done before the end of this financial year. Nothing's happened. And stage 2 will be done early next year. Now I read this updated schedule, and the last comment on the schedule is project to be reconsidered as part of the next long-term plan. So, where's the certainty of getting anything done after 10 years? It's an absolute joke and a waste of time. Stormwater should be a priority. Everything else should be on the back. Nice to have. And I mean, when are we actually going to achieve something and get something done instead of the talk fest that continues to go on and nothing gets done? So, how do we get feedback? How do we make it happen?
I note your concerns, Rob, and I've got that highlighted, about the global consent business again in the works program. Hopefully Someone will come up with some answers.
Well, it'd be nice to have an answer.
Yeah.
What they're actually trying to achieve, or they're trying to justify not doing something like they've done in the past. Come up with reasons, oh, it's too bloody hard, we can't do that. There's almost an agenda to destroy our two communities.
Thank you, Rob. Have I missed, did you say anything? Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Oh, David?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody. Just to build on what Bob has done and about Holland Place, in a document discovery process, we've identified that a consent has been put forward to WRC. In that documentation, there is two things which are of concern. There's a note for deferral of 5 years between the stream bed, and there's a note of deferral for 25 years for the remedial works that has been announced about, what's the name of the street up there? Mount Adams, right, thank you. With the annunciation of the works program and the note to defer to the long-term plan, doesn't give us any assurance that the person who represented the council, who gave us assurance that the works would be started and completed by June for the first phase, and any subsequent phase is going to ever occur this year. But it gives room for deferment. And I am concerned about that. So I would ask is that somebody gives us an explanation as to why there is a notation for deferment that this project goes into the long-term plan. It's concerning that something is afoot. Thank you.
Thank you, David. If no further speakers, I so move that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives Joyce, Gordon, Leah, David and Bob as speakers in public forum, including any tabled material and correspondence. Now, I'll move on a second.
I'll second.
Do we have a mover? Yeah, I so moved. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Item 1.4, items not on the agenda. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? There being none?
Can I just, is the chair's report on here?
I have a chair's report.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
We haven't got it because I haven't given it out.
No, but it's still, I just.
It's following the action schedule.
Action sheet, okay. Report to exclude budget. Okay, right. Yep. I don't see it there, that's all.
No. Are there any conflicts of interest? There being none. Item 1.6, minutes of confirmation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Receive the motion, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Are there any amendments, corrections required? Any discussion on the motion? I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Yes. Item 2.1, request to retain the 2022-23 Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board grant. The Pāuanui Half Marathon, the Tairua Hall Committee and the Tairua Care and Friendship.
I'd just like to make a comment that the Tairua Care and Friendship, somehow the actual narrative there is to do with market day signage. That's actually for the Only Mana ratepayers group. The Tairua Care and Friendship, they want to hold over their money for their full hire for next year. So the $250 balance is what they want to spend towards their lunches and pool hire rental next year. So we'll make that amendment as well. Not sure how that happened.
Tairua.
So through option 1 or option 2.
Yes.
And I'll move option 1.
The board approves the retention of the funds to the Pāuanui Half Marathon Tairua Hall Committee and the Tairua and Friendship Club to be spent in the 24 financial year.
And we'll just change the
And
amount.
add in the one I just mentioned, right?
Yeah, we'll change it to the $250 for the Tairua and Friendship.
So the resolution is that we received a request to retain the 22-23 Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board grant for the half marathon, the Hall Committee and the Tairua and Friendship Club. And we approve the retention of the 22-23 Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board grant funds to the following groups to be spent in the 23-24 year. That's the $1,100 for the Pāuanui half marathon, $4,000 for the Tairua Hall Committee, and the $250 for the Tairua Care and Friendship. Yep, we have a mover and a seconder.
Yes.
Move.
Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3.1, the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board work program. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Board.
Work program. We want to kick this off. The Manoa Hub proposed that this project be deferred as part of the annual plan and reconsidered in the long-term plan.
That's correct.
Can you enlighten us a bit further on?
Well, we have a proposed concept plan from the architect. Excuse me.
Andrew,
And
Hang on, Andrew, we'll just try and get some more volume up.
can you hear me?
Maybe his father.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a bit better.
We have a concept plan for the proposed alteration to the existing hub, but that can't go any further because there's no budget in the annual plan next year. So the project is on hold, is probably the best way to describe it, and we'll revisit it if and when it resurfaces within the long-term plan.
Oh. Yeah. Yes, not very satisfactory, is it?
I thought it was supposed to be deferred for a year, not completely buried.
That was the original, I think the previous.
It's very disappointing, but I understand the reasoning why. Just to update you as well, on item 2517,
Just going back.
the Beaumont Green Playground,
Yeah.
that work has been completed.
Can you just go back? You said, I understand the reasoning why. Well, I was struggling to follow, to understand what that reasoning was. Being deferred.
Well, the funding, councillor, has been, for next year, has been cancelled, as it were.
And
As,
just
as part of the annual plan process.
A budget cut.
Yeah.
So how's it fallen off the long-term plan completely then?
I beg your pardon?
From what you're saying is it's gone completely from the long-term plan as well and has to be re-entered.
Yes. That's my understanding. There's no budget next year for this project.
I appreciate there's no budget for it next year, but I'm struggling to understand why it's gone.
Yes, can I just have a word here to the chair? So this is the last year of the 3-year period of the long-term plan, the 21 to 31.
Yeah.
So next year we start the annual long-term plan from 24 to 34. So it's taken out of next year's program and being put for up discussion in the 24-34 long-term plan. And just to keep informed the board here that we've had a fairly strong cut on everything. In fact, you'll find there's very little footpath money in the budget for next year, very little, everything in the budget's been cut right back to pretty bare bones. We haven't signed off that annual plan yet, but it's coming up, but at the moment it looks like there is a huge reduction in actual projects going on, so there is a feeling that people are going to miss out, and it's been part of the hard discussion at council from getting from 25% down to 11% on the rates. So that's where the discussion's been held, and that's where we are at the moment. And I'll talk some more about the other stuff coming through.
But I think what Barry, board member Barry Roberts is saying, how come it doesn't automatically just get forwarded on to the long-term plan automatically?
And so that's used to be rolled over in the retained earnings and things like that. This will be carried over into that program. The money should fall into retained earnings if it's a project, but this time it's not. They're going to take the money. In fact, you'll find the retained earnings is also on the fine, and 50% of that will go from local and full amount from council, which is normally projects that are carried over into the next year. They are also going to be disappearing. So, as well your discretionary fund and half your contestable funds.
So through you, Warwick, my understanding is if we want to get the Manaia Road Hub back into the program, we're going to have to resubmit into the long-term plan process. No.
This discussion at the moment is the annual plan. The last of the 3 years, the annual plan, which is the 23-24 annual plan. But when it comes to the 24-34 long-term plan discussion, your project will be re-raised at that point. So not into the next year, into the following year. And whether it's in the following first or 3 or whatever it is.
The Tairua Skate Park, can you explain what you mean by carry forward of unspent funds will need to be considered by council? What does that mean?
Well, the funding that was in this year's annual plan will not be spent, and the money will go forward, hopefully into next year as carry forward. So we have a variety of carry forward amounts across the whole district and every ward, and this money for the Tairua Skate Park is part of that.
So they're carrying out forward to keep it into next year's programs.
Yeah.
That happens on the 1st of July this year. So it's not next year, it's actually this year. And
so shall I move on to the street?
Just one second, Andrew, so that's been done
because of judicial review proceedings, is that right?
So I can't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
That's been done because of judicial review proceedings.
There is a meeting this afternoon about that judicial review that Alison Hunt is managing with Brookfields.
Let's clarify that a little bit. The project's continuing, even though there's a JR being lodged. I thought so. Work continues without that fear of that JR, and they'll go through some proceedings to decide whether they have to halt or not, depending on what happens.
Just through the chair, Warwick, so the carry forward process is triggered for any budgets that are unspent that we'd like to carry forward. They all get put into the report. So the reason for that getting carried forward is just because we've not been able to spend it so far this year.
Street lights. Now this was an item brought up by Victoria resident ratepayers. Street light on the corner of Margaret Wells and Motorhire Road.
Yeah,
Been a bit of confusion over these street lights up there on Paku. There's been one missing, supposedly installed, but it went missing.
I'm not aware of that.
Isn't that the
I
one
don't know
with
where it's gone.
Tairua-Pāuanui?
That was on the list previously.
That's not, it's not there. The one in Tairua-Pāuanui, corner of Tairua-Pāuanui and Parker Drive.
I'll look into that.
I think our previous web program said it had been installed.
I understand that.
Yeah, we can't find it.
You don't know where it is.
No, you got
Neither
that.
do I.
Moving on to harbour consent. Can you explain what a global consent is? Please.
No, I need to speak to the coastal management officer about that.
So you don't have a clue what it means?
I beg your pardon?
You don't have a clue what global consent means?
No, I need to. I'll get a response this morning on that to everyone there.
Through the chair, because of my background with Waikato Regional Council, I don't know about this particular instance, but a global consent is often one that's applied for across a number of locations. So it might be the same sort of activity over a number of locations. So it won't be a consent specifically for that activity. It'll be broad geographically. So the example is that Waikato Regional Council has got a number of global consents for river management that allows them to do the work that they do across the nation.
Okay, well, we await this anticipation on that explanation.
Fine.
Go on. Pāuanui Holland Stream.
The resource consent was lodged on the 31st of May for the Mount Avenue stormwater bypass. And once again, this project has been a casualty, unfortunately, of the annual plan process and will be reconsidered, as I've said here, as part of the next LTP. Very disappointing, but that's the situation at the moment.
You would have heard Gordon's concerns about this leaking sewage.
I will ask Ian Smith, who's looking after this project, to meet with Gordon. I've been trying to get hold of Ian this morning to look at that issue. So Ian will meet Gordon to see what we can do. Storms contracting are currently, I understand, carrying out the stream maintenance, but that's as far as we will go at the moment.
When you say stream maintenance, what do you mean by that, please?
We're just tidying up the stream.
Right down through where it's all clogged up at the bottom?
I'm not quite sure how far he's going to go, but that's my understanding with the budget that we've got available this year, that we'll try and spend that on the maintenance work in the stream now. Anything else next year? There's no budget for it.
Less than 500k. Through the chair, just to add to what Andrew said, I have been on site with Ian a few months ago. I understand there's cross sections for the stream for what its normal gravel bed would be, and so the maintenance would be taking that gravel back to
That's right.
that level. So it's from the upper reach where it comes out of the forest, basically, down to the point before it discharges across and under the road. So that's the section that he took me to a few months back.
So that section from below the road out to sea can continue to hold it back because there's no channel through there.
Yeah, I'd need to check with the project manager.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted a few words around this. It's been a long-term project and we started off with $7 million in the kitty. We're going to buy some houses and do some all sorts of things with it. And we had a working group that works pretty hard on it over the years. And we opened up the stream and did some work around that and helped mitigate that without buying those houses. But there is some work to be done down at the bottom of the stream. But I can tell you that the elected members have supported this through the whole project. And it really is down to operations to make this happen. And I suppose there's been some gaps there that they'll admit to that hasn't happened. And Ian Smith, he's now, I think he's a consultant now, isn't he? He's not actually a staff member, he's doing the work around this.
Yep.
And yeah, and we're in a situation now about how we go next. But he's got some things that he said he'd do by the end of June. Let's see what happens.
Yes.
This is very much not a governance issue, it's an operations issue.
Is there any further matters? On the work session? Any further comment? If not, I move that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board CAPEX work program 22-23 and operational information update report taken to 30th of May 2023. Can I have a move and a second, please? Second. Okay, move. Reluctantly. Yeah.
If I could just comment, if I can, through the chair. Yeah. So the plan for the current work program has been sort of looked at hard, and the rollover projects that normally happen when you get completed in 1 year, but normally fall into the next year into a retained earnings box and regenerate. That's not going to happen next year. Those projects will have to be re-actioned in the 24-34 long-term plan session. So there's been some quite dramatic cuts right across the board, from budgets of 1.7 down to $200,000 type thing. Really aggressive cuts across the board. It's hard work, it's hard to handle, especially around how we're going to look after our volunteers and our community groups, but not having the finance to be able to support them. So really tough. I don't know whether we're going to have to look at that, Eileen, in terms of those numbers. Are they going to be coming up soon?
I'm not sure. I don't know, sorry.
So the annual plan, which is going to be signed off on the 27th of June, those numbers should come to the community board at some stage to see where the cuts are being and the stress that's going to be with it. So yeah, if we can find any which way we can to try and retain some money for the community, this is difficult.
Yeah, through you, Warwick. I appreciate where we're at, Terry, and I'm not under any illusions that we've put backs to the wall. I've come in pretty late on this, but it seems to me that this has been 10 years of messing around, and I don't know who's been doing the messing around, but when I came onto the community board, we went down there and had a lot of things were going to happen, and here we are 8 months later, and nothing's happened.
But I can tell you just through that the community board had signed off this to happen, went to council and signed off, so you've done your job. We're just waiting for the process to happen on operations side to get it completed. So any directions, discussions, fall into operations to help us understand what the issues are.
Why has it taken so long, Andrew?
I beg your pardon?
Why has it taken so long for anything to actually happen?
I believe there's been a significant amount of consultation with the property owners in that area, and that has taken quite some time. And put in that's affected the resource consent application time it's taken to put that in place. Those are the reasons some of the reasons why.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
We're moving on to item 4.1, action schedule. The purpose of this report is to update members on actions arising from and since the last formal board meeting held on the 27th of March. Items arising, action schedule. Any comments?
No, that's got mine. What are they, actually?
Well, there's only 3 items. The work program members requested feedback on the Pāuanui holiday tree. Regular updates will be received from staff attending the June 3. We've heard about that. Footpath construction, streets for the remaining budget to be identified and advised to members. Staff will investigate, this is a close item, staff will investigate and report back to the area manager. And the cleaning of the stormwater drain by the tennis courts at Karakia, well, I'm pleased to report that that's actually been done. And that's all for long time.
Question through the chair. So the work program with footpath construction, is there any money left in this year's budget?
No, I think that they haven't told me. I think it's all been spent. Is Andrew still on there? I haven't had anything reported to me.
Right, so that Pāuanui footpath can't be repaired in this financial year, is that what you're
I will follow that up.
Oh.
I'll follow that up because
That's a health and safety issue.
yeah. So I will follow that up with the, it'll either be part, depending on where it is exactly, will be dependent on whether it's part to reserves, but I will follow it up.
They're usually pretty, I mean, you know, I've put in requests, similar sort of things at home, and they're all just really quick.
Sometimes.
Well, and around on my street, I make a big noise. Or bigger noise.
Yeah, but a request for service should get a result.
I can also request through the chair, we just got, is this the right time to raise? I'd like a end of year report prepared on the work that was planned to be done and the work was completed. There is a template with the financial people to do that, just give you an understanding of where we sit.
Any further discussion on the action schedule?
Or through the chair, I can update on the long-term plan timeframes, if that would be of assistance.
Right.
So the long-term plan timeframes are just being confirmed, but it's looking as though in July we'll initiate some of the project request forms. So that will be looking at the projects that will form part of the LTP. Any of those projects that are already in the existing LTP or have been deferred will be in there from the get-go. In August, we'll complete that process of gathering those projects for the LTP. In September, they'll be reviewed by the staff, and in October, there'll be board workshops on them before in November or December, council workshopping them. And then after that, they'll come back to the boards again in December or January for another look at them before they go to the council again. And at that point, between February, March, April sometime, they'll go out for consultation with the public. So that's the timeframes that are set at the moment. They're just being finalised, and then they'll come out with a nice graphic for everyone.
When are they signing up on that in the plan?
27th of June.
Pretty sure. Okay, so I'll re-put the resolution that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the action schedule report dated 10th of May 2023. Do I have a move and a second?
Yes.
You, thank you, Kat. All in favour?
Aye.
Right, at this stage, I'm going to exercise my right to a chair's report. You're well aware that previous last term, we had members' reports. For whatever reason, they've been discontinued. You will recall that during the days of inductions at the start of this term, there was a unified consensus that across the district, communities voiced their lack of consultation, communication and engagement. As a result, council staff have initiated the networking days that take place in between our board meetings. The primary function being to foster better relationships between council, councillors, community boards and the grassroots people of our communities. Traditionally, resident and ratepayers have been the watchdogs of communities, but there are many other groups and associations within our communities that contribute to our social well-being. As elected board members, we are advocates and representatives on their behalf, and as such, we need to become more involved in representing them. We need to broaden our base of social intelligence. Often, when we're out socialising, it is not uncommon to get involved in a discussion concerning council. While these chats can generate lively discussion, it also creates the opportunity to suggest to them to come along to one of these networking days, sit around the table where they have the opportunity to express their concerns and opinions in an atmosphere free of the confines provided at public forum. We have already started to engage with community groups for the resurrection of the once defunct parks and reserves and community and harbour care groups. I have recently met with the chairs of both of our resident and ratepayers associations, establishing a better flow of information between us. So I'm asking you, when attending meetings, take the opportunity during general business to mention these networking days and promote the opportunity for the public to have their say. Thank you. I so move that the Tairua Community Board receives the chairperson's report dated the 19th of June 2023. Can I move in the second, please?
Second.
I'll move a lot today. Thank you.
Just in terms of your comments about networking meetings there, Mr. Chair, the resident and ratepayers chairs would be almost a standing invitation in the networking meetings in the community.
I would expect, in both cases, when we meet over here, yep. And representatives from, yeah. These are, we're in early days with these. Perhaps Dean could explain how his end, how they operate. But, yeah, we're seeking a wider input. As I said, would you like to add anything?
Through the chair, just generally across the board, in all boards, not just this one, the residents and ratepayer chairs are standing items, and they'd probably be 6 months or so. I'm just curiously trying to find the schedule that we produced for this board, just to see when we're meeting next.
So we've got them on the 10th of July.
10th of July.
Yeah.
Tairua residents and ratepayers, along with the Hikawai District Trust and the Tairua Information Centre.
I think there's a Tairua walk-maker request too.
Yes, but that's pretty full for that day. But we'll have a look to see what timings we can do and see if we can get Walk Tairua in on that one as well.
Well, Joyce will be there as Secretary of Resident Ratepayers, so we'll just change action.
I'm the secretary.
Just a really brief comment. Although we've got a bit of a schedule, it is very, very flexible. There's already been examples where there's been some priority issues pop up, and there's been examples where we're planning to meet with a certain group, and they've said, hey, look, why don't we go and meet here instead, because this is a current opportunity or something. So just bear in mind that they are flexible, but we obviously do need to have a little bit of planning, because we can't have everyone, at one session.
True. There needs to be some sort of an agenda there. Do you understand?
Yeah, and we've got the table that pencils things in, and then as we get about a month out, we're able to confirm that.
Fine. Which brings us to how we exclude. Just before we go into public excluded, you're aware that at the end of this session, we're having a volunteers support day, or those volunteers that are in the area have been invited to have a fun fight with us, and no doubt there'll be a discussion on various topics. That's what we were. I did hope that Chris was going to be here to talk to you about civil defence, and I'm disappointed that he's not. I haven't heard where he is.
My husband's the fire chief of Rawhanui and he knows
Yes.
me.
I had a talk to Darren just on last Thursday. But yeah, it is. We need to address this bit after when we have a gunfight. Okay, well, we're going into the closed session. So I'd ask. Immediately following this item. Stay around. The buns will be nice.
I think it will be the same.
Joyce, tomorrow. Sorry, Wednesday. So.
Yeah, I'll be there. I would agree with Paris.
My apologies. I can't.